Hello and welcome to MLA Formatting. So this is one of the styles that you're going to need to be able to commit to memory from your freshman year on through to your senior year of college. So MLA stands for Modern Language Association. And every time that you have to go about formatting a document, it's more than likely that you'll be formatting in MLA. So it's worth it to take the time to learn how to format properly. Once you open up a blank document, more than likely your teacher will have assigned the document to you, so there might be a title that's already been applied. What you would do in that case is just add your name to the document on some portion of it. Normally it would be at the end of the title. Otherwise, you would probably title your document in the most quickest, most efficient way. So for this case, it'll be MLA Format. And then from there, I would put my first initial and then maybe my last name. That was my last name as a student, and so as to not get confused, that's exactly the way that I'll place it. So now that I have my title for my document, I can get started formatting the document itself. Notice that Google automatically will put it at a normal text, Arial as your font, the size is going to be 11, and then all of these other icons up here that you may have looked past in previous assignments, you're going to want to take note of, especially the line and paragraph spacing. So before you even start, notice that the document has to be formatted before you start typing. So instead of jumping right in, you're going to come up to your font and choose Times New Roman. It will always be Times New Roman. Be careful because there's the option for Times. If you were to look for it, Times is available, and it's a different font. So you always want Times New Roman. Make sure that you're choosing Times New Roman. It'll be listed up here as one of your recent, and then you can choose to make it size 12. It will always be Times New Roman size 12. The next thing that you'll need to do is the line spacing, and you'll set it up to be double. Now that you've formatted the document, you also will need to access the header and format that as well. Notice that they are two different formats. So once I click out of the header, on the document itself, it's Times New Roman size 12 and my spacing is doubled. Then when I double click in the top, I gain access to the header and I have to reformat again. So again, I'm going to change this, Times New Roman, size 12, and in here we need to pull the cursor all the way to the right hand side because we're going to apply the student's last name and the page number. This is going to be helpful in case we are printing out all of the pieces and they get lost or disconnected in some way. At least your professor, your teacher will be able to put them back together for the appropriate student in the appropriate order. So to place the page number and your name all the way to the right-hand side, you're going to go back up to the toolbar and choose the alignment buttons. So this will allow the cursor and the writing to happen from one side or the other of the page. Right now, and normally when you type, you'll have a left alignment. What we need for the header portion is a right alignment, or Control-Shift-R. It puts your cursor all the way to the right-hand side of the page, and then you'll come up to Insert, come down to Page Elements, and Page Numbers. And you are choosing the one all the way here in the top left, where you're providing the page number in the top right corner. Notice also, if you need quicker access, you can go to Options, Page Numbers, and we are only placing the page number in the header. You're starting at page 1. The only time that this would change is if your teacher requested a cover page. There are very few teachers who still do this, but it's worth it to ask the question. Once you've applied the number there, you'll notice that it's highlighted. When I go to check for MLA, I'll be checking to see that that number highlights. Then I know that it's been automatically page numbered. I'm going to put my cursor in front of the number 1, and I'm going to type in my last name so that if the pages get disconnected, they can be found and put into the proper order. Make sure that there's a space between your last name and the page number. Just for good measure, I like to highlight the entire thing and see that the Times New Roman is still listed there. Then I know that it's correct. It's size 12. All right, once I click out of the header portion, because that's what this is the header, your last name, the page number, that's all that's going to go up there. So once I click out of it and hit enter, it should take me to the subsequent page where it is also going to be listed with my last name and page 2. So now that I can come all the way back, I'll get back to the top of the page. Make sure that you're pulling your cursor all the way up. The other thing to remember is to not hit enter too many times over here. It will cause the document to start too low on the page for when you start to type. So make sure that when you're up in the header that you're not adding any additional spaces. All right, now that we are formatted and we're ready to begin, the document itself needs to make sure that it's formatted. We are in Times New Roman, we are size 12, and our spacing in the document is double, so that's excellent. Now we're going to get started with, if this is the header, then what we are doing now is the heading. I'm bringing my cursor as far up as I possibly can, hitting the backspace button, and I'm going to go with the information that's most important, so names first. The student name comes first because it's your document. Next is going to be the teacher's name. You can probably find this on your syllabus, but make sure that if you do have a shortened version, my students will call me Miss S, Mrs. Santo, make sure that you are writing the entire name of the teacher. This is a more formal document, so you want to make sure that you're providing all of the information accurately and in a formal way. On the next line, it's going to be the course that you're in. If this is English 1 for you, it's going to be a capital I, not a numeric 1, which is different than up here. We're providing page numbers. That's a numeric 1. Down here, we have a capital I. That's a Roman numeral, English 1. If this were English 3, there'd be capital I. English 2, capital I. English 4, IV. On the next line, this is my favorite part because they don't care when you sat down to write it, they want to know the due date. And the reason that they asked for the due date is because in college you'll have multiple submissions in one course, and sometimes a professor might want to organize according to the due date. So let's say that this was going to be due for this coming Wednesday. That would be 5 November 2025. Notice that there's no punctuation. I have the number of the date, the month, capitalized, and then the year that we're in. On the very next line, I now have to change my alignment and go to a center alignment. I'm going to go back up to my toolbar. Notice that I can do a center alignment with Control-Shift-E also, which will put me right in the center of the document. I now need to provide some sort of a title. If it's an English course, I definitely want to do some sort of a creative title. In this case, my teacher provided me with one, so if I'm not provided one, I might just leave a space and come back to the title later. Otherwise, in this case, I believe that this is for a quarterly assessment. So this is a great option, just labeling it so that we can get most accurately to the assignment name. All right, on the very next line, and this is where a lot of students make the mistake, they will start typing here, but you need to make sure that you're coming back up to your alignment button and giving yourself a left alignment again. At this point, this is where you're making a decision. Are you typing an entire response, or do you have to number your responses? If you are numbering because you're answering questions, you'll do number 1, period, and you'll notice that it will automatically indent. Same thing if it turns out that you're answering a long form response and you need to number something. Make sure that you're numbering, hitting the period, hitting enter so that it can automatically indent for your response. From this point forward, you don't need to change anything else on the document. As you start typing, it will automatically start to make sure that you are at least one line away. Notice that that double spacing, that's mostly for teachers so that when you go to print out your responses, they can make adjustments to your writing inside the lines themselves as opposed to on the side of the document where we don't have enough room to write. So there's reasons behind all the elements of MLA format, but your job is to just successfully execute the MLA format. I hope that this was helpful. Make sure that you're committing all of these factors to memory because you're going to be asked to complete an MLA formatted document many, many times between now and the time that you graduate. So hopefully you can commit this to memory. If nothing else, save this document so that you can always reference back to it, or at least save this video so that you can reference it. All right, good luck.